All right. So, Horror of Dolores. I like it.
What?
I like it.
Oh, good. Thank you.
The first episode was really done creatively. I love the way it's laid out and told. It was a great idea.
Oh, good. Thank you.
How did the show come to be?
Well, the TV series is based on a podcast that was released in 2018, which is based itself on a play that I did off-Broadway in 2015, which came out of my time living in Washington Heights. I lived in Washington Heights in Manhattan for 10 years and was watching the neighborhood gentrify. And I felt like I was watching the neighborhood cannibalize itself. And that, for me, was the spark of, a cannibalism story. And I went back to, one of the great cannibalism stories I think our species has ever concocted, which is the legend of Sweeney Todd that goes back to the mid-1800s. That's really what this all came from, was re-examining that character, that legend, in contemporary New York City.
Awesome. Now, when it came to casting, did you have someone in mind for the role of Dolores? Because Justina's perfect.
She's extraordinary. We were very, 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 very lucky to get Justina. Justina is, I mean, truly one of the greatest artists I've ever been lucky enough to be in the same room with. I had written the play and the podcast for the great Daphne Rubin Vega. I had been a Daphne super fan, and that inspired the whole thing. And Daphne is a brilliant storyteller in many ways, and she's a brilliant writer, and she's a writer and a producer on the show. So we knew that Daphne was going to be focusing on writing and producing in this new iteration. She had played the part in other mediums it had been years. She and I had been working together. And she and Justina have known each other for a very long time, and it was a very sort of natural transition into Justina taking on the role for television. She's extraordinary.
She is. She's fantastic, and I like the character. It's that her trying to start over and trying to, find herself again and dealing with all the other drama.
Yes.
It's just a really good story.
Good.
So, if you will, tell our readers a little bit about what happens in the series.
Well, Dolores Roach returns to Washington Heights with $200 that they've given her upon her release from prison and the clothes on her back. And everything is gone. The life that she knew has been completely erased. She has no family or friends that she can find. She reunites with a guy that she knew when he was just a kid, who runs Empanada Loca, the empanada shop that she used to frequent. And he takes her in. She had learned to give massages in prison, and she starts giving massages by magic hands, Dolores, they called her. And, as we like to say, she accidentally on purpose becomes a serial killer. And the show is entirely in her experience. It's a very unusual show in that Dolores is in every scene. The viewer is in the experience with this person we identify with as she's becoming a serial killer that she doesn't want to be.
Right, that's fantastic. When it comes to cannibalism, which is, it's still pretty taboo. Did you have any issues with anybody, having that subject?
It's so funny. I've been working on this thing for 10 years now. So I forget that not that I, have eaten human flesh myself, but it's so funny. I forget that people are freaked out by it. And, when we'd have our empanada days on set, and we had this brilliant food stylist who created all of these empanadas, and she would create a different recipe for each human victim who was in them, because she wanted them to look and feel different, and she wanted the look of surprise and shock and delight on the face of the actors eating these empanadas to be real, and they are real. And then we would have, crew who didn't want to taste them and they were grossed out. We would have actors who were going, oh my God. And I would think, why, what's the problem? Because I've become sort of inoculated to, oh, that's right, they're eating people, of course, Right. But as our character Luis says in the show, meat is meat, flesh is flesh.
Yeah, I guess some people's got to do it. So what do you hope viewers take away from the series?
Well, I hope that, they take away that, the show is entirely in her experience. It's a very unusual show in that Dolores is in every scene. The viewer is in the experience with this person we identify with as she's becoming a serial killer that she doesn't want to be. I hope viewers are surprised by how much they identify with a character behaving in ways they never thought they would themselves. That I talk a lot about the show being an exercise in identification, and that I think is what's different about this. Oh,
Sorry.
no, don't apologize. What's different, I think, about Dolores compared to a lot of television serial killers and compared with, the hundreds of years of retellings of Sweeney Todd, she's someone we identify with. She's meant to be me. She's you. She's every viewer. And if one goes into the show thinking like, well, I'm not, I don't have her circumstances. I would never do what she does. We walk you through step by step by step by step by step. No. This is the human condition. The show, the cannibalism metaphor extends to us all being made of the same meat. We're all made of the same flesh. That's what I hope people take away is, oh my God, I am so much closer to that character.
That's, disturbing on its own level. So
Sure. Yeah.
But it's I love the way it's told. I mean, I love the way it's all laid out.
Thank you.
It's very unusual, especially the premiere episode.
Yeah.
The way we meet her, the way we're introduced to Dolores, and the beginning of her story and how she started on this path.
Yes.
And it's, it was surprising and very enjoyable.
Good.
Apologize again.
Don't apologize. All good.
But sorry, I got distracted.
Okay.
When it comes to the podcast, where is it available for people to listen?
The podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. It's a Spotify podcast, so we drive people to Spotify first and foremost, but it's everywhere.
Okay. Awesome. Because, would you recommend listening to that before you see the series or after? It's hard for me to say. They're different pieces. I mean, it is fundamentally the same essential piece. It's very important to me that we don't disappoint people who love the podcast and people who know the play before that. But there are lots of twists and turns. It was equally important, certainly to me, that for those who had heard the podcast, this wasn't simply a visualization of what they'd heard. This cat really wants to. Sorry, that was a different cat. Oh, really? Yeah. Amazing. How many do you have? 5. I really appreciate that you had to count. You had to take a moment to count. Yeah. We have a few, but I'm sorry. Continue. No, it's all good. It was really important that this wasn't simply a visualization of exactly what you'd heard in the podcast. It's the same essential piece. It's the same essential character, but there are twists and turns. I wanted to keep an audience that thought they knew the piece on their toes and to surprise them in ways throughout. So it's hard for me to recommend one versus the other. I've only had the experience of working with people on the show who had already heard the podcast. I'm really, really curious now that people are going to see the television show, what I'm going to hear from people who have experienced it the other way around. Right. Awesome. I'll definitely have to check that out because, I love the show so far. I've seen a couple of episodes and I'm not going to give any spoilers. Okay. But, it's a great show. And I love when we can get a different story, a different point of view. Yeah. So much of the TV series we get now are just too much alike. Yes. Go ahead, sorry. And when a series is willing to tackle, subjects such as prison and drugs and cannibalism. Sure. That's something different, something special. Thank you. And the gentrification is a really key piece of the show. And to your point about things being so similar, I went through as many iterations of the Sweeney Todd character as I could find, and they are 99% white men. The vast majority of serial killers we've seen on television have been white men. It was really important that this be its own story, that this is told through a different lens. Right. And it definitely is. And, I know it's early, but I'm going to ask anyway. Is there going to be a second season? I would love to know. What I can say is that I believe there's much more story to tell about Dolores. I certainly know
what happens to her next. We always say Dolores is unkillable, and sometimes I mean the character, sometimes I mean the project. There's a second season of the podcast, which would be very different than how we go forward on television. But I think Dolores has a lot more to say.
And when does the second season of the podcast come?
Oh, the second season of the podcast came out in 2019. No, 2020. 2019. I'm wrong. 2019.
All right. Awesome. That's great. And where do you see, like, and I know we can't talk about spoilers and stuff.
We can allude to certain things.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We can allude to certain things.
Right, gotcha. Sure. How do you think her story is going to evolve this season that will touch people?
I think that in terms of touching people, I think that everybody on the planet can relate to feeling guilt about something and gotten up the next day. And I hope everybody can relate to finding a kind of healing and struggling with the question of, where do I put that guilt? How do I continue to live as if everything is fine, knowing that there is something? How do I forgive myself for something that I thought would be unforgivable? That is, I hope, what touches people in Dolores' story. Dolores is someone who really wants to be a good person. She's somebody, I always say she's a serial killer who's not a sociopath, which is debatable, but that's how I approach her in the writing. She's someone who doesn't forgive herself. She spends, rather than being a serial killer who says, I had to do it, I'm justified, I'm good, that person's bad, she spends the season going, oh my God, am I this person? Am I the monster? I don't recognize myself. And I think we can all relate to that. Hopefully we all haven't been snapping people's necks, but that's, I think, the essential journey that she takes that I hope is what speaks to people.
When you wrote the play, where did was it just Sweeney Todd that inspired you and Washington Heights, or was there something darker that kind of drove you to tell the story?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was that. It was this idea of guilt, and so much of my work, beyond Dolores, I tend to be drawn to stories that are essentially about the question, why do good people do bad things? Creatively, that's what I keep coming back to, and I was really fascinated by a character who really truly believes that she's fundamentally good, and that she herself is grappling with, how can I have done all of this? That's really what the play for me became about, and about the answer to that being survival. Right. I always talk about the original Penny Dreadful Sweeney Todd is really about greed. I mean, the character slits people's throats and steals their jewelry and their money. The musical that everybody knows is about revenge. This is a piece about survival. This is a piece about someone being backed into a corner and finding themselves behaving in ways that seem foreign to themselves,
Right. And I mean, starting over after 16 years,
yeah,
$200 and, not have anybody to automatically turn to. I mean, that's scary.
Yeah, very scary. And by the way, all too common in the world, I mean, that's the relatability piece. Again, not that I think, everybody's out there snapping necks, but there are too many people, I think, who are spat out of the prison system and are completely. This is not a third different cat, though, is it?
No, okay. This is. I'm sorry. This is Baby Doll. I can't pick her up and move her because she has stitches from her collarbone to her tail right now. So I can't pick her up and move her.
Okay, no, it's okay. Stitches. Is she okay?
And we had it removed, and so she's still healing.
Okay.
So I just moved her.
Okay, I'm glad she's okay.
Yeah, she's fine.
Good.
I'm sorry.
Okay, it's all good. Mine likes to I'm surprised she's not here right now. Mine likes to come and participate in Zooms as well.
Oh, yes, they get mighty nosy anytime I'm doing anything that.
Of course.
Yeah. But that's great. But I, like I said, I love the character, and I love the, I've been through that. I've never been to jail or killed anybody or ate anybody, but I've been through that. You've got to start over with nothing feeling.
Yeah.
And, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, It is. It's all about survival and that next step. And I can't wait to see how the story evolves and how she becomes this person that she is.
That's the story of the first season, is Dolores Roach becoming the Dolores Roach that she becomes famous for. One of the big changes from the podcast to the series, which you see a little bit of in our first episode of the season, is this idea that the key story takes place in 2019, pre-COVID, but we have this framing device that takes place present day, 4 years later, in which this character of Dolores, who just wants to be left alone, she wants to be under the radar, she wants to live a small, quiet life, has now become absolutely world famous. And the story of the first season is, how does that person become that person?
Right, right. And like I said, it's the way that it opens is very unique. And so
Good.
that really pleased me, really, got me interested in the series, is just the way that just the premiere unfolded.
I'm thrilled to hear that.
And
Good.
now, you're on that, when first episode ends, you're still kind of in that halfway in that panic mode of, where's she going to go? What's she going to do? How's she going to live? And you see her start to evolve to survive.
Well, it was really important. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say that that's awesome.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that as well. It was important. I'm glad to hear you say that in particular, because it was really important that, and I think I can say this without, I think this is not a spoiler. I think a lot of TV shows would have had a kill happen right away. And it was really important. I think one of the things that's so unusual about the first few episodes and the way the series is structured is that it takes a minute. We have to spend time with Dolores. We have to really get to know her. We have to become accustomed to her. We have to get aligned with her emotionally. We have to let ourselves trust her before that turn happens.
Right, that bond, bonding with that character.
Yeah.
And when you get a character that, you can understand that you're cheering for and all that, it hooks you.
Good.
I mean,
I'm
you have
glad.
to know how the story goes.
I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you.
And she's such an interesting character. I mean, she really is, because she's so many things, but she's got that fight in her.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of female characters like that these days. Ones that have that tenacity, that determination to, I'm going to survive.
Yeah, tenacity is exactly. Yeah. No, she's unkillable. We always say she's unkillable. And I also like to say about Dolores, she wouldn't hurt a fly, but she might snap your neck. She really just wants to do good in the world. She really does. But she's backed into a corner, and she will be the last one in the room.
Right. Well, she's got to do what she's got to do. And I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us would do a lot to survive.
Sure.
The whole cannibalism thing, I think, is people are getting more adjusted to stories with it.
Yeah.
Because of things like a Yellow Jacket. I don't know if you've seen that, but yeah, and it's it's a taboo that makes you uneasy, and her actions make you uneasy, but you got to like her, it's just a little bit of, it just gets you.
Good.
And I can't, like I said, I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. And I hope that there is a second season, because I'm already addicted.
Wow.
So,
mouth to God's ears.
So I'm already hooked. But yeah, it's a fantastic show. And, I'm definitely going to check out the podcast.
Oh, good.
If there's, is your show on anywhere?
The series?
The
Oh, the play? Mm-hmm. No, the play is published by Dramatist Play Service and Broadway Licensing, and the play is done all over the world. I'm really happy to say I've seen productions of the play. I saw a fantastic production coming right out of the pandemic in Las Vegas. There was a production in Taipei during the pandemic. So the play is readable, and lives on. I mean, that's one of the, as a playwright, fundamentally, one of the great thrills for me is that people reinvent that character live all the time. And I certainly hope I very much hope that we can bring the stage version back in a bigger capacity at some point soon.
Oh, I'm sure interest will be piqued.
I very much hope so.
Do you have any other stories floating around that may be coming soon?
Certainly. Work on my other projects for television are, were paused for the writer's strike, which is the most important thing happening right now. And, obviously I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you through my publicist. So everything is on hold at the moment. I hope, as we all do, that in the coming months, a fair deal will be reached and we can all get back to work. But there are some new projects that I had been working on that I'm hoping to return to, and some adaptations of things that I had done. There's a piece that I had done for Audible that I'm working on a television. I had been working on a television adaptation of. There's another play of mine, another monologue play that I did after the Dolores play that I'm hoping to do as a feature. And I hope at the end of the strike, there's a lot more to come.
And hopefully that includes a second season of Dolores.
Above all else.
So, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. It looks like our time has run out. But it was an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to see more.
Thank you so much. So great to meet you.
You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.